Okay, let's dive into this. We're all just swimming in a sea of information these days, and trying to figure out what's real and what's not, it can feel pretty overwhelming. We're always told to check the facts, but what happens when the very idea of a fact check gets challenged?
I'm sure you've seen a claim like this one floating around online. It's a really powerful argument, right? It basically says that fact-checking isn't about finding the truth at all. It's just a weapon to shut people up. And that's a serious accusation that cuts right to the heart of who and what we trust.
So what's the deal? Is that claim true? Is fact-checking just a sophisticated form of censorship? Or is it a tool for figuring things out? Maybe a flawed tool, but a tool nonetheless. Well, to even begin to answer that, we have to understand something fundamental about how we test any claim.
And that brings us to this absolutely brilliant concept that comes from the world of science, but honestly, it's essential for just thinking clearly. It's called falsifiability, and it's pretty much the bedrock of how we verify, well, anything.
Now, this is super important, so let's get it right. Falsifiable does not mean a claim is false. Not at all. It just means it's testable. It means you can imagine some kind of evidence that could, in theory, prove it wrong. That's the huge difference between a claim about the world and, say, a personal opinion.
Let's make this really simple. Take a claim like this. The sun rose today at 7:36 a.m. This is a perfect example of a falsifiable statement. It's specific, it's about the real world, and right away you can think of ways you could go and check it.
And see, this is really all fact-checking is at its core. It's not some mysterious biased process. It's just comparing a claim to independent, verifiable proof. For the sunrise, you can look at astronomical data, public records, you name it. It's a straightforward process.
Okay, but now let's pivot to where things get messy in our modern world. Because while some claims are easy to test, others are kind of designed, sometimes on purpose, sometimes not, to be impossible to disprove.
Now compare the sunrise claim to this claim. This is totally different. It's not a specific fact about the world. It's this huge, sweeping generalization about an entire system. It might sound like a valid criticism, but it works in a much more corrosive way.
And this leads to a really crucial idea. It's called a self-sealing belief structure. It's basically a logical fortress. If a fact check comes out that says you're wrong, it's not taken as evidence you might need to rethink your position. No, it's reinterpreted as proof that the fact checkers are biased and part of the conspiracy. Correction becomes literally impossible.
And this right here shows a really dangerous shift in our public conversations. A productive disagreement is all about asking, is this claim true, and trying to get to the right answer. But this unfalsifiable stance changes the entire game. The question becomes, can anyone even be trusted? The goal isn't to find the truth anymore, it's just to dismiss everything.
This whole dynamic brings us to a very famous phrase that I think perfectly captures this feeling, this sense that the facts themselves have somehow picked a side. You've definitely heard this one.
First made famous by the comedian Stephen Colbert, this line has taken on a life of its own. It's often used as a punchline, yeah, but it's also used to make a serious point, that if your beliefs are constantly running into conflict with the evidence, maybe, just maybe, the problem isn't with the evidence. But is it really that simple? Okay, this is where we need to get really precise. This idea that reality has a bias actually works pretty well when we're talking about empirical, fact-based questions where there's a strong scientific consensus. Think climate science or vaccine efficacy. But the idea completely falls apart when the debate is about values. Reality doesn't tell us the perfect tax policy or the ideal number of immigrants. Those are questions about our priorities, our morals, not just cold, hard facts.
So what's actually happening when you feel like reality is biased against you? Well, psychologically, it's often a classic sign of cognitive dissonance. That's that deeply uncomfortable, squirmy feeling you get when a belief you hold very dear smacks right into evidence that contradicts it. And frankly, it's often easier to just say the evidence is biased than to change your mind.
So this leaves all of us with a really important choice. When our beliefs and the facts are in a fight, what do? Do we just dig in our heels and declare the facts are unfair, or do we do something a lot more useful?
And I think this is the most helpful way to look at it. Reality itself doesn't have a political party. It isn't liberal or conservative. It just is. But evidence does build up over time. And at any given moment, some models of the world are simply going to fit that pile of evidence better than others.
So here it is. This is the ultimate takeaway, and it applies to every single one of us, no matter our politics. If your theory about how the world works
keeps getting contradicted by verifiable evidence, the most productive, healthy thing to do isn't to shout about bias, it's to revise your model.
And that brings it all right back to us. That feeling that fact checks are weaponized can be the first red flag that one of our own beliefs is clashing with reality. Being a good thinker isn't about being right all the time. It's about having the guts to step back and ask, which of my models might be due for an update?